my family that I grew up in, one of the things that really affected me was actually my family lived in Brazil. My mom's very Sendy. Yeah. So my dad came back and they were trying to decide if they should go or not go. And they actually played a Scrabble game. Scrabble was their game. And they said the winner gets to choose if we go or don't go. And my mom won.
There's Scrabble, no way.
And my mom said, I want to go. And my dad said, all right, let's do it.
I'm Becky Brower, and I'm a Sendy Mom. You're listening to the Sendy Mom podcast.
Welcome to the Sendy Mom podcast. I am really excited to be visiting here with my good friend, Jeanetta Robinson. And we have been friends for a very long time, like 25 years, 20, oh my gosh,
or
27. They're 27.
Yeah,
so our oldest sons were good friends back when they were babies. So yeah, so we've been friends for a really long time. And Jeanetta has a great story to tell. So I am excited to talk to her about how she is a Sendy mom. She totally is. She's done some amazing things in her life, and she's raised some great kids too, and teaching them to be resilient and to stand up for themselves. So,
right.
So my first question is what do you think a Sendy mom is?
Well, this is a little new to me, but when I found out a little more about it, I could see why you're going in this direction, because I've always thought of you as someone who just takes something new and makes it fun and exciting. And I'm sure you're scared and nervous a lot of the time, but you Definitely. Don't show it, actually, for the most part. I feel like some of the things I've seen you do, I think, wow, that takes a lot of guts to do. So I don't know. I think it's something maybe you don't tend to notice in yourself. Mm-hmm. And so I think this is kind of an interesting format to talk about it in a way that I don't know that I would have really thought about it quite in this way before. I mean, I do think of myself as someone who looks at something new and thinks, I could do that and give it a try. Yeah. And done lots of things that haven't turned out like I expected they would. But I kind of look at it like, what's the harm in trying?
Absolutely. So. And you say, you don't always recognize it in yourself. And I agree. And I think you don't always recognize it in yourself either, but you're definitely a Sendy mom because you do try things. You just go with it. And sometimes you have things that are kind of thrust upon you that you have to do, but you do them, right? And so you learn how to send it as it's happening, So I think that's really awesome. So tell me a little bit about yourself, the family that you grew up in, and your family that you have now.
So I think that's a huge part, actually, as I was thinking a little more about this. I grew up in a huge family. Mm-hmm. So I'm the 7th of 11 children.
Yep. And I'm second of 12.
Yes. And so I think there is some of it I think is your personality you're born with, but I think being from a large family plays into that as well.
Yes.
Because you have, for me, because I was a little further down in line, I had these older siblings to look at and see all the different things that they were doing. And they're quite different in their personalities and their interests. And so I could see, my oldest brother was very nerdy and into the beginnings of computers when they first came out. So we were introduced to some of those things. And then another brother who's very artistic and would do different things. And my sister's a nurse, and my other sister went into anthropology and architecture. So it was like all these various interests and activities of my older siblings, and to see, well, what's me? What am I going to figure out for me? But it wasn't like I need to live up to what anyone else is doing. It was just, we were free to kind of choose the own path, because as my parents had all these kids, they couldn't give so much direction all the time to say, oh, let's get you into soccer and you into baseball and you into so it was really self-driven. Any interests we had, I do regret my mom did sign us up for swim lessons because she wanted us to be safe, but I wanted to quit. So she said, okay, you can quit. It wasn't, those things weren't forced. We took piano lessons, but when we went in practice, she would say, why am I paying money for practice? You could be all done. It wasn't like, where
just
I hear
push yourself.
So if it wasn't self-motivated, then it didn't happen. My parents weren't, I was, I guess, a free range kid before that was a thing kind of. And so all of those things, I never looked at something and thought, maybe I can't, maybe I shouldn't try that. If it was interesting, I could try it. If it costs a lot of money, well, that was out. I knew that wasn't an option, but
and so what were some of the things that you picked that you felt
so
like you
I
liked?
tried gymnastics. I loved watching it. And
did you have any older siblings that did gymnastics?
No.
And did that play into it a little bit? Did you feel like I want to choose something different than my siblings did?
I think, well, I did have a sister-in-law. So when I was just in my early teens, my older siblings started getting married. And I did have an older sister-in-law who was on the high school gymnastics team. And I just liked watching it in the Olympics or watching it, I lived close to the University of Utah and they had a great team. And so just that kind of excitement, it did something for me that made me excited about it. And so it was something that I wanted to do.
Yeah, I wonder if it does help. Like if you want your kids to do something, they have to see it first, right? To get inspired by it. So I think that taking your kids to events and things like that can help them to kind of get that inspiration. Because I remember that as a kid too, going to different events. And my older, because I only had one older sister, and we were only a year apart, and so we kind of did everything together. And so like my aunt, she did horses. And so she had a horse, and that's what got me really interested in riding horses, because I would watch my aunt ride horses. So I think that makes a huge difference in inspiring people to do things, just watching it and being there.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, but again, it didn't really stick at the time. And so I did it for a little while, but then when I got tired of it, I moved on to other things. And, but I'd always get excited. I remember, the continuing education catalogs would come in the mail, and I would always want to look through them, even at 14, 15 years old, where these classes were more meant for people my mom's age,
right?
But they would take anybody. And so like when I was in high school, I took a fencing class, and I thought,
you did?
That would be so much fun.
I took fencing at BYU and I loved it. It was so much fun. Okay, tell me about the fencing class.
So I did that in high school, and then I did take it at BYU, but just again for one semester. I feel like I start a lot of things, and if I'm not really good at it, then I feel like maybe I don't want to do it.
And that's okay too.
But I at least give it a try. I kind of wish I would have pushed that a little bit more, gone a little further.
We can always start again. I totally want to fence with you now. Like I'll do it with my kids sometimes, just playing around and stuff. I'm pretty good. Like I can, thrust.
I still have my moves. Yeah, no, I could get it right out. But so I tried, different things like that. But part of, I think, in the whole my family that I grew up in, one of the things that really affected me was actually my family lived in Brazil.
Oh, that's right. I do
when
remember that.
I was in basically preschool, kindergarten age. And so we did that. And my mom and dad, their oldest two children were in college. So they didn't come, but they still took 7 kids.
7 children to Brazil.
So
how did this happen? What was your dad doing, or your mom to?
So my dad was an architect, and he usually worked for himself, but he had friends in different places in Salt Lake City, and he had a friend at the church that said, we need someone to go down and oversee the construction of churches. There was a huge growth in church membership there, and they needed someone, not a local person, but someone that had experience with Salt Lake and knew people.
Could be kind of the liaison to the construction workers, and got it.
And so we did that, and even my second to youngest brother was born while we were down there. How
did your mom deal with that? She's pretty Sendy too, then, I guess.
My mom's very Sendy. So my dad came back, and they were trying to decide if they should go or not go. And they actually played a Scrabble game. Scrabble was their game. And they said the winner gets to choose if we go or don't go. And my mom
Through
won.
Scrabble, no way.
And my mom said, I want to go. And my dad said, all right, let's do it.
So did your dad not want to go as much?
He was thinking about it. I mean, he wouldn't have even brought it up if he wasn't interested.
Right. Uh-huh.
But I think maybe part of him knew it kind of needed to be my mom's decision in the end to go or not.
So let's segue into China for a second. So you got an opportunity to go to China. How did you feel about that?
So that was interesting as well. My husband works for a hard disk drive company. And so he had been traveling back and forth to Asia with the work that he does. And he came home one day and said, they were talking about sending me over for a couple of years to help start up a factory in southern China. But I told him we weren't interested. And I said, what? Why aren't you interested? I think that would be awesome. Let's, is it too late?
Let's explore this.
Could we still do this? And he said, really? You want to go? I thought if we did something like that, you'd rather go to Europe or South America or something like that. And I said, yeah, probably just because that's what I'm more familiar with, but I still would totally love to do that. So he had to go back and talk to his boss again and say, actually, I thought about it and I'm interested. And they said, well, we've offered it to somebody else since you said no. So let's we'll have to see how that goes. But he was their first choice, and somehow that all ended up working out. I don't know if the second person decided they didn't want to go or if they rescinded. I don't
know how that went down.
About
but you guys, so how much time did you have in between when you knew and when you were actually moving?
So I was pregnant at the time when the offer came. And so I was trying to decide.
Was this with the twins?
Yeah, but I didn't know yet that they were twins. So my youngest two kids are twins. And when he told us about it, I thought, how is that going to work with school? My oldest was in kindergarten. And so I thought, well, maybe I want to stay until the baby is born and then we can go over. Because I wasn't sure what the healthcare system was going to be like and whatnot. So that was the date we set. And then plus let my son get through the school year. That kind of thing. I want to do that.
How long did you have the twins here before you moved back over there then?
So they were 6 months old when we arrived.
Okay. Were you living with your parents then or?
No. And in fact, my husband was gone more than he was here. And so we just got really lucky. There was a young couple that was doing an internship that we met, and she was only going to be around for about 4 months. And so wasn't really sure what kind of job she could get while her husband had his internship in our area. And I said, how about, would you like to come be my helper? And she was all excited about that. And so that we kind of felt funny about it because we've never had to have that kind of help, but we didn't live close to family, which is what we would have done if we were close to family. We would have just had a niece or a nephew or someone else, had come and help from time to time. But she ended up, we started her with just, a couple hours in the morning as getting kids ready and stuff. And then it became all morning, and then it became kind of 8 hours. When we went, my oldest, I had a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and twin 6-month-olds when we went.
That's crazy. How did that go? Like setting your house up? I mean, you have to wait for your furniture to get there, or did you? So
what we did, we packed everything up, and they had a smaller shipment with like just mattresses and your bare necessities that they shipped on a flight over. And then the rest of the stuff they shipped on the slow boat to China. And so once we loaded everything up, we were living in California, and we came and stayed with family for about a month in Utah while everything was shipping over there. And then we timed out our air shipment to go over on the day we knew we were arriving. And then it worked out actually that our boat shipment and our air shipment both arrived on the day that we got there. So, and I'm going to backtrack just for a second, and this will tie in maybe with some other questions. But when I was 14 or 15 years old, I had someone who said, you know what, you should make a list of all the things you ever want to accomplish in your life. Make get a journal, get something to write it down and that you can keep. And yeah, just anything,
Yeah.
whether it seems impossible or big or small, anything.
Right.
So I made a list of probably 25 things.
Kind of a bucket list.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so through my life, I've kind of gone back and looked at the list. I don't look at it all the time, but they're kind of in your head. And so while I was in China, I actually was able to get to a few of those bucket list things.
Oh, okay, good. Tell me, what did you start with? Like you're 14, 15 years old and you're looking at this list. What was important to you at that time?
So some of the things, I wanted to get in better shape. I've struggled with my weight since I was probably 10 years old, just up and down. And I never enjoyed doing sports. And so, I had a hard time being really physically fit, active from a young age. And so those were definitely on my mind, because as a teenager, especially when you don't have confidence in how you look, that can affect, your thoughts and your goals and different things.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't think you're alone either. I mean, I think most women have had those. I mean, I certainly did when I was a teenager. And of course, now I look back at my pictures, I'm like, what in the world was I worried about?
Oh, sure.
So now I actually look at my pictures now, and instead of saying, oh my gosh, I think, ooh, what am I going to think in 10 years? 10 years from now, I'm going to be looking at myself saying, man, you are hot, right?
That's what my mom always said. Don't get rid of any pictures that you think you looked at, and wait 10 years and you'll think you look great.
Yeah, exactly.
So I definitely believe in that.
Yeah.
But so there were quite a few items on my list that related to that. So it was losing a specific amount of weight.
Okay.
I wanted to start running because I figured I didn't need equipment or specific things. That was something that would be easier to do than a lot of other things. And I didn't like team sports or things like that. So it was just, that was easy. So I put on there to run in a 5K, run in a 10K, some along those lines, graduate from college, write a book.
How's that coming?
So I have started probably 6 or 7 different books, and they've gone nowhere. And I have no desire to publish ever. That's not my goal, but I do have ideas that I think would be interesting, and I will get. That's kind of, as I was thinking about this whole interview, that was probably the thing that came to mind the most of my next challenge that I am going to take on.
Yeah. Well, you're a huge
future,
reader,
so.
and you're a librarian as well. So it seems the natural fit.
Right. And so I think it's one of those things, though, that everyone thinks they could write.
Fiction or nonfiction?
Definitely not nonfiction. I'm not an expert really in anything.
Okay.
So not the way I would go. But yeah, I have some
ideas.
Ideas for
science fiction.
So.
What's the genre?
My faith plays a huge role in my life. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and that has affected a lot of what I do. And I feel like there hasn't been like the American novel about an LDS person of like, there's a lot of LDS authors and they've done a lot of great things, but more of like, I think along the lines of the book, The Chosen, by Chaim Potok. And that affected me so much as a teenager. It's the book I've gone and read it every phase of my life, and it still affects me.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I'm sure I've read it, but anyway.
But
continue.
if you want to take a look, go read it. That's my
one
of my number one recommendations.
Okay.
But it's the story of a Jewish boy and his best friend, and the experiences they go through as they realize more about their history and how their history affects who they are, kind of thing. And so I feel like, for me personally, it wouldn't be my personal story, but taking some of those feelings and things and wishing that people outside of my own faith, my own religion, could understand about why we are the way we are. And so
that gives me chills. I love it. No, that's great.
So, but I don't look at myself as an author or a writer really, but I just feel like I want to express those feelings in some way, and that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
So
And I think
I
you
don't
should
know.
totally publish. Why not just send it? That's the thing. Like you just write it, and you just start writing and you just keep going, right? And you do a little bit every day. And then at some point you go and have somebody read it. And I think that's probably the hardest part because it's like your baby.
Yeah.
That you have put your whole soul into, and then you let somebody else go and critique it.
Sure.
Right? And then I think you should totally go there.
So I guess the point that I'm making though is that the process of writing it is what my
Where your joy
purpose
comes
is,
from.
and that's where that would be my success, whether it was impactful for other people or not, is not my purpose in doing it.
Yeah.
So if it ended up that I let people read it and they said, "Oh my goodness, this is so good, you should look at getting it published," then I would consider doing it. But just knowing that I don't want that to be the goal, because then that kind of sets it as a failure or a success, and that's not
Interesting.
That's not the point for me.
Yeah.
So,
No, and I think that that's really true. I mean, this whole podcast is kind of like that for me too. It's just like, I just want to have some good conversations with some of my friends and see, what they do that inspires them and inspires me. And I feel like sometimes those are actually the best reasons to do it, because that's what's going to give you peace and joy. If you have some sort of an expectation that there's going to be, a huge success with this or that, then it's not fun. And you're setting yourself up for failure.
Right.
All right. It's time for the Sendy Mom Spotlight. So today's Sendy Mom is Harriet Tubman. She was born into slavery in 1822. Her owner began renting her as a babysitter when she was 6 years old. Her life really changed dramatically, though, when she was 13 years old. An enslaver told her to help him locate an escaped slave, and she refused to help him. The enslaver became frustrated, and then he threw a 2-pound weight that hit her in the back of the head. This caused her severe migraines for the rest of her life and narcolepsy, which is a disease of the brain where your brain doesn't figure out when you're sleeping or when you're awake. During her dream state, she would often have spiritual experiences with vivid visions of her freedom. She later escaped and became a leading abolitionist, helping enslaved people gain freedom via the Underground Railroad. Her role was as a conductor, where she led escaped slaves to safe houses where station masters would protect them until they could be conducted to the next safe house. People often referred to Harriet Tubman as Moses because of her determination to lead her people to freedom. She was also instrumental in fighting for women's rights, which was not always linked to slavery in those days. Raising an adopted daughter with her second husband, Harriet nurtured many as a leading advocate for freedom. She continues to nurture and inspire many people today with her courageous call to freedom. This makes Harriet Tubman a very Sendy Mom. Unfortunately, slavery is still not completely abolished. Today, we often associate slavery with trafficking. I recently had a friend over who was abducted from her home in Mexico when she was 13 years old. She had a difficult home life and was seduced by an online boyfriend. Like Harriet Tubman, she escaped her captors and now is trying to help other victims to find freedom. Victims need to want to be saved, or they often go back to their captors because they don't know where else to go. However, recognizing victims is how we can help. If you notice someone who looks frightened or that you suspect might be in a dangerous situation, they often will not speak directly to you. They've been instructed to not speak to anyone. Don't prod or ask questions. You might get them into trouble. Note the situation, possibly take a photo or video if you're able to do so without being obvious, and then contact the appropriate people. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security has a tip line that I'll put in the show notes after this, along with a few other phone numbers that you can call. Once you have reported, they will investigate. You can be a Sendy Mom by being aware and being brave enough to say something. Okay, so tell me some of the other things that you did that off your list.
So I did start running, and I ended up getting to the point where I did the half marathon on the Great Wall of China. So
no way.
That was pretty fun.
That's pretty cool. And you just sign up for
to
that.
do that.
That's
yeah, you don't have to qualify.
Okay.
It's such an awkward run because you have a couple of bottlenecks on there that it's not used as any kind of official
Yeah, of
course to qualify for other
But
races,
you're up on top of the wall then.
Yeah.
That's
not
really
the whole
cool.
time, just actually, it's just a small portion of it actually,
Okay.
but it's through the village and up on the wall and
Yeah.
down and around. But
That's pretty cool.
I felt like that was that took it to a higher level, because that actually, I had only put up to a 10K on your list of goals I wanted to do, but just had some good friends who said, why don't we do that? And so and that's a good
point too, because a lot of times we need people around us supporting us. So sometimes we can make this list, and it was probably pretty private.
It was, yeah.
And you didn't talk to people about it. But as soon as you do tell somebody about, I'm going to do this, then it makes it a little bit more real. And that those people can kind of surround you and kind of push you up and help you to be there. So that's cool.
And then when we were in mainland China, I was able to get involved with a charity with their headquarters was in my same city. And that was really exciting to me. It was for a girls' home in a province of China that was very poor. And the girls would, if they were in a very poor family who was really struggling financially, there were times where girls would just be sent out to fend for themselves. And there was a family that started taking them in, and they started a girls' home. They would have a yearly gala to fundraise.
Okay.
And it was, definitely outside of my comfort zone, but exciting. It was
fun
to feel like you were actually making a difference for someone. And so I don't know that I would have done that if I were still in my comfortable little neighborhood in California,
Yeah, right.
But being exposed to different things and a lot of different kinds of people, that was a great experience.
Yeah, and what did you learn from those girls? I mean, how did that change you? How do you feel like that changed you?
Having your eyes opened a little bit to what the world is like. Lived in Brazil as a child. I went back as an adult and had seen poverty there, but it wasn't like the poverty that and it wasn't even the poverty. I guess it was even more looking at the value that they gave to girls.
I see. Yeah.
And so being so impressed, because they've developed this great program, and now they have a training school together with the home so that the girls can make a living and not be forced into sex trafficking and prostitution and other things that would often happen to these girls. So,
and it's interesting because with a lot of my interviews, I come back to the humanitarian stuff that people are doing, because we do have a lot, right? We've been so blessed, and sometimes you get a little bit of, I don't know if you call it survivor's guilt or just guilt, because you were born into a situation where you had opportunities, and like you said, you come from a large family that probably you didn't have a whole lot of money growing up, but in comparison to these girls in China, like it gives you some perspective, right?
Yeah.
That there is growing up doing it hard, but then there's growing up having no opportunity to even make a difference, and to feel like you've been able to make a difference in these girls' lives, to protect them from having some of these horrible things happen to them that they would, gives you a lot of joy.
Yeah.
Right. And peace that you can do those sorts of things, but also it also gives you a little bit of, I don't know, it makes me feel a little helpless sometimes. Like, what could I do to like make the world a little bit better? And I guess it's people who just send it and they're like, okay, we're going to start this. We're going to take this one girl and we're going to make it better for this one girl. And then, oh, she has a friend. Okay, well, I'm going to grab my friend and I'm going to see if my friend can help this girl right here.
Like, you're never going to completely eradicate poverty in the world. I don't think we can, but we can make a difference. So if you look at the whole problem as something too big to ever overcome, then you don't do anything.
You don't do anything. Exactly.
And so if you can take a little teeny bite-sized piece and say, well, okay, I can't solve the whole problem, but I can help
I can
in this way.
fundraise,
Yeah.
right? Or I can donate some money, or I can donate some time to this event, or I can just be kind to these people. When you
Right.
like, especially, you know, when you have lived in different places and you meet different people, it levels the playing field a little bit. If you have that attitude of like, there is no superiority or inferiority, we are all equal in value to each other, then that makes a difference too, because the way you treat people, other people can see that and be inspired by that as well. That, hey, we are all in this together. We all have the same feelings. We all have the same desires, and maybe we don't all have the same opportunities, but we're trying to make the world a little bit better. So
Yeah.
I love that.
So that was a small part of it. And then just trying to learn Chinese. So when we went to China, I actually avoided trying to learn Chinese initially. Well, especially when we were in Hong Kong, because so many people speak English.
Mm-hmm.
When we moved into mainland China, and it was Mandarin instead of Cantonese, which is, in my opinion, it's quite a bit easier to learn.
Okay.
But then it was more of a necessity, because if I wanted to go shopping and take a taxi and those kinds of things, then I needed to at least have a basic thing. So I did start taking some lessons and studied pretty hard, and I was comfortable.
Good.
Being out on my own and that kind of thing, which was intimidating at first. And I actually ended up getting my driver's license over there, so I could even drive in China. Yeah.
Do you have any kind of sibling rivalry with your kids at all?
Well, obviously twins
Right.
is tricky. They're identical twins and very different, actually. I mean, they have a lot of similar interests, but just how they deal with, like, they have different struggles. And so that, I think, is the hardest part for them, is they see how much better the other one does at the things that they personally struggle with, which we all do that.
Sure.
As
I think
human beings.
Yeah.
But it's more especially because you're twins and you are in school at the same grade at the same time. So if one person has an easier time with math, then the other one feels like, I'm not good at math.
Right.
Where you might be perfectly good at math, you just might not be as good as your sister.
Right.
And so they look at those things all the time. The one, is more shy and the other one's more outgoing. So then it's like, well, she's better at me than me at that.
As they grow older, then they recognize, yeah, she's good at that and I'm good at that. Great. Like we can't be good at everything, right? You pick different things. At some point you do need to recognize, I have some abilities in this area too, and I'm going to explore those possibilities without feeling like I'm going to offend the other sibling, right? So at some point, I hope that they at least feel like they can try to do some of the things that their sister is doing.
I think maybe they also supported each other, but at the same time, it was like, I don't have to be exactly the same. So I think that's where, when people see identical twins, and I guess that'd be my one little piece of advice maybe to twin parents. I've never called them the twins.
Okay.
And I guess it is easier because they're both girls, right? If it was a boy and a girl, this doesn't work. But I always call them my girls.
My girls, yeah.
Not my twins, because I never want them to be seen as one unit.
Right, yeah.
And so I want them to,
have their own independent personality. They're completely different people, even though they were born on the same day.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I have 3 sons and then the twin girl. So the 3 boys, I always had really hoped that they would all be best friends with each other.
Yeah.
They like each other, but they're definitely not best friends with each other. But I'm okay with that as well, because for me, it is nice to see that they do feel like they can be their own self and take their own course in life. And, because my husband's in high tech and he was very math and science focused, our family has kind of tended to be that way. So my boys all deal with high tech in one way or another in what they do. But it's nice that they're connected, but yet they still felt that they could go and pursue what it was they wanted to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Individually as
It
well.
is interesting to see, like, families, you think you've got 2 parents and you're going to do these cookie cutter children. And in the beginning, it is a little bit like that, like, when they're young and stuff. But as they get older and the older they become and then they get married, it becomes more diverse because they do kind of come up with their own their own direction,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all on their own journey, and celebrating that journey is going to make you a lot happier than wishing that they would have gone a different direction. Is there anything else that you feel like you would like to do? Any other goals that are still on your list that you're still?
So I had made a goal to learn ancient Greek at one time. And so last year I met up with a friend that I hadn't seen for a long time, and we went hiking. And as we were going, she said, "So if you had the day to do whatever you wanted to do, what would you do?" And I was kind of stumped, actually, because since my girls started college, I have had a lot of days where I can do whatever I want to do. And so once, I was very involved with PTA and with my kids and things. But then once they were gone, I hadn't really taken up all these things. I kept saying, I'll do that at some point. And so that was kind of a wake up call to me that I had at that point, like a year and a half of plenty of days that I could do whatever I want. And I kind of feel like I had wasted them.
Interesting.
So I started thinking, okay, what, how do I want to spend my time? Because I had found, looking at that from that perspective of how much time I've been wasting. And it wasn't like I just sit around. I mean, I do that plenty too, but of actually doing meaningful things that I wanted to accomplish. So I decided, okay, I'm going to do it. I waited all this time. I have no excuse. So last December, I signed up for an online ancient Greek class and just dove right in, but didn't really realize the level of the class that I was taking. And so when I got in there, my class had, university professors and archaeologists, and
was it online class?
It was online, but it was live.
Okay.
Right. It was a Zoom class. And I thought, ooh, this is a whole lot harder than I was expecting it to be, and moving a lot faster than I expected. And I thought, okay, English is my first language. I learned Portuguese as a kid and then picked it back up as an adult. I learned some basic Chinese. And so I thought, I can do this. Like, this is very different, very outside my comfort zone, but I could do this. And I couldn't. I stuck with it. It was a 3.5 month course. I would go online and try to find videos and things so I could just listen to it a lot. And I kept coming across these videos about language in general, and they'd say, the top 5 hardest languages ever to learn. And ancient Greek was always on those lists. And that's when I hadn't thought of it that way before I tried.
Before you wrote it down, like, I'm going to,
And so I'm like, what am I doing? And I would get sick to my stomach, actually, before each of my classes, because it was probably, honestly, the first time in my life where I was the slowest person in the class. And I kept saying, I'm the dumbest person in the class. And everyone kept saying, stop saying that. You're not dumb. That whole
you go through that
mentality. But you do. I wasn't alone, right? The class started out with like 10 people. And by the time I did quit, I think there were 3 of us left in the class. I could say that was a failure, and I did definitely feel like I had failed at that. But then thinking of it after, I'm like, well, I can't even really say it's a failure because I learned a lot about myself in the process. It was very humbling, which I think everyone could use that every now and then.
For sure.
And, but then it directed me to something that I can do. And that I'm really enjoying. And I probably wouldn't have added that to my list of things to do if I hadn't
had that experience.
Tried it that way.
I mean, pivoting is an important tool to have, because we don't often know when we get started with something the direction it's going to take us. And so as we move forward with whatever decision we've made, I think the point is that you make a decision and you do something. So, like you said, I had taken a break after my kids. That's totally fine. You take a break, but then you make a decision to do something, to make a difference. And sometimes you just have to go forward with that. And, like when I made the decision to go back to school too. And like, okay, I'm just going to sign up for these classes and we'll see how it goes. And then they weren't as hard as I thought they were going to be. I learned so much and it was great, but it also helped me to understand, like, I don't need to get another bachelor's degree. I'm done. Like, this is fine. I will get this certificate and I will be done with it. And this is great. And I'm going to educate myself somewhere else. So pivoting is a really important skill to have, to be able to stop what you're doing and to take it another direction. I think the biggest problem we have is when we stop and we don't start again. We don't do anything. That's when you fall into depression and anxiety, really, is when you stop moving forward, then you have more time to ruminate on past things, or you have time to worry about other things. It's being in that present moment and making the decision right now to be deliberate about moving forward in any direction that's going to help you to feel more in control of your life and more free. I have some rapid fire questions that I can ask you. And sometimes these lead us down other paths too.
Sure.
So we'll see what happens.
Okay.
All right. So what has brought you the most joy in the last 24 hours?
I got to read books with my grandkids.
That's the best.
That is maybe one of my all-time favorite things to do ever. I love reading kids' books out loud. I love seeing a little kid just totally there, like they're so into
and
what you're
pointing
doing.
Their little finger. And how old are your grandkids?
So it was with my 4-year-old granddaughter.
Okay,
I was doing it.
Okay, what was the last TV show or documentary that you watched that you liked?
I actually really enjoyed Dark Matter.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you've heard of that one.
No.
I've discovered my favorite entertainment format is when you make a TV series out of a book instead of a movie.
Okay.
So like you said, I'm a big reader, and I feel like the movies never do justice to the book. That's always the
There's not enough time.
thing. Right. And so if you turn it into a TV series, then you can develop the characters, you can get the full storyline in, you can do some of those things. So
okay.
That's my favorite form of entertainment. And I feel like, not to advertise for anybody, but I feel like Apple Plus has done a better job than most on being able to take a book or a series of books and
make them into
a
series.
series. Yeah.
That's awesome. Good. All right. What was the best book you've read recently?
I'm not done with it yet, but I've been enjoying, since I've been on a language thing lately. There's a book that's called The Land of Made Up Languages. I'm messing up the title now. Invented Languages, Land of Invented Languages. And so it's just been fascinating to hear about, some of these different people, some older history and some modern, Klingon.
Right.
And, but then there was someone who tried to invent a universal language that would be easy for anybody in the world to learn. And it was his goal that everyone in the world could speak to each other because they could learn this simplified language. And so it's been a fascinating read.
Okay. Love that. Okay. Name one thing that you try to do every day.
I try to exercise every day.
Yeah.
It's something that I've been all over the board on throughout my life on what exercise looks like even. Mm-hmm. So even if it just means going for a walk, but I fully believe that my mental health is directly related to getting up and moving. So even if I walk around my neighborhood that day, if that's my exercise, I try to at least do that.
I love that. Yeah. That's really good.
I've tried to do, I did quit running because my body wasn't enjoying that so much anymore. And just being a little bit sore, but just recently took up rowing.
Really?
So we'll see. Not actually on the water. I mean, I'd love to kayak, but I got a rowing machine, so I can.
Yeah, I mean that's a full body workout for sure.
But so if I try to do a mix and match of walking around and getting on the rowing machine, and
I think it's good to have a balance of both, of use the whole body and everything. That's kind of my exercise right now too. So what do you think I should try next?
I was totally stumped on this. I think because I already see you, like you said, like you try so many new things. You did make me want to climb Kilimanjaro. When I saw that, I started talking to friends and trying to figure out how I could get over there and do that. After seeing you do it. So I'm like,
well, let's do it. We'll do it.
You already been there.
Let's go climb a mountain. We'll go climb a mountain together. I'll climb a mountain with you.
I don't know. I'd say learn a different instrument.
That actually sounds really good. Like, because I played the piano. I played a little bit of violin when I was younger. I don't really want to learn the violin though, but maybe, I don't know, the accordion or something.
Yeah.
Or harmonica.
I say the accordion's too easy with your piano skills. You gotta do something really outside of your comfort zone.
Did you play an instrument?
Again, I took enough piano to know the basics, and that was another thing a goal that I had for this year was to practice every day. And I was devoted and faithful to it for about 4 months, and then it became every other day, and I haven't practiced probably for 6 weeks now. So
seems like, did your kids do instruments?
We tried them all on things, but nothing really stuck. So we gave them opportunities, and if they weren't passionate about it, I didn't push it. I didn't see the point. And they may regret that now, but
and they can still pick it up. So
so that's the thing. Oh, that is on my list. Learn to play the cello.
Oh yeah, cello would be beautiful.
That's one of my favorites. But see, and one of my daughters did take it up, and so we have a cello that she doesn't play anymore. So I should pick that up and
pick it up. Well, this was so fun to talk to you and chat about your life and see all the Sendy things that you have done. So you're an amazing person. I've always admired you and felt inspired.
Thank you for the invite and for reinvigorating my energy to think about some more things I can add to my list.
Of course. So thank you for being with us on Sendy Mom, and be sure to subscribe to the channel and the YouTube channel, and find us online at sendymom.com. See you.